In this world first FESS course, the dissectors are based in Hokkaido and the instructors in Adelaide.
Okay, comment for the Japanese participants and from all over the world.
Thank you, Masa. I'd just like to say what a pleasure it is to be with you all.
The first step in the course is to use the software to understand and plan the anatomy of the models.
So once we've got a little idea of what the anatomy looks like, we can start thinking, okay, where are our cells and what do the cells look like? That looks like the Agonizing cell. So if we want to draw a block there, so we've got a Agonizing superagofrontal bulla superbulla cell. So now we want to look at the drainage pathway. So if we follow the space from the frontal sinus downwards, we start to see that it's medial. So we have a surgical plan. The surgical plan will be to do an axillary flap, identify this very small agonizing cell, take the roof down, and then we'll see superaga frontal cell. So once we looking up into the frontal recess at that superaga frontal cell, we know that we need to look medial to the cell to look for the drainage pathway. And we're going to slide our instrument up the drainage pathway and fracture the roof of the cell laterally to expose the frontal ostium. So that's a demonstration of the software and how to use it.
Each of the delegates now use their own software on their own computers to plan the software of each of the models, and this is corrected by the instructors.
And you can see how the bulla pneumatizes into the concha bullosa.
Yeah.
So now to find the pathway, scroll in the axial scan. Now we need to move to the dissection.
Each dissector now does their own dissection on exactly the same model. Each dissector is watched on the screen from Adelaide and gets individual instruction as to what and how they should proceed with the dissection. This is constant observation, supervision, and instruction.
So take it up as high as you can, and then we'll be able to see our frontal.
Station 2、だいぶ頭蓋手が見えてきました。今のポーズ、上京したら、
On completion of each of their dissections in Hokkaido, Adelaide then does a dissection demonstration on exactly the same model which each of the delegates have dissected, thereby reinforcing the steps, the anatomy, and the procedure.
What I think we should do now is to improve our access for our instruments. We want to remove the front face of the suprabulla frontal cell so we can get an angled instrument, because as you can see here, the axis is very, very tight.
I would use the curette, yeah, like he is. Just put the curette,
okay.
go behind, yeah, and now pull hard up against the beak until he reaches the beak. Number 2, leave the wall.
In station 2.
Number 2, you need to look at the screen, you need to take this all away here.
In the new models, we are also able to raise septal flaps. These models have had the mucosa printed on the bone. Here we are raising an axillary flap and tucking it between the middle turbinate and the septum. The models also allow for the demonstration and the performance of a frontal drill out in all of the specimens.
Now we have our septal window.
これでセプタルウィンドウの、階層が終わりです。
Now you start to see we're coming to the floor of the frontal sinus. First landmark for us is going to be the skin. That's with a 0-degree scope. You can see a very wide oval-shaped opening into the frontal sinus, and that's what we want. And that's what it looks like from the top.
Each of the dissectors is now monitored and tutored on all of the finer aspects of the frontal drill out procedure.
You can see your anterior to the olfactory neuron. You need to come across here. Okay, that's good. Station 3. You can
Station 3、とてもいいです。
You can see where the olfactory neuron is. Now you can join the two sides. So if you look here on the axial scan, what you've done is you've drilled the bone away here and exposed this part, and there's a space. If you look at station 1, look at the frontal T. You see how the T pushes forward and how we've lowered the frontal T.
We also now have models that have tumours, such as this pituitary tumour case with the carotid artery in it. After raising a septal flap, we then open up the sphenoid sinus. We identify the carotid artery and an injury is made into the carotid. Significant bleeding is seen. The skills of the hover to control the blood flow and then to place the muscle patch over the injury site to control the bleeding, and then the septal flap is placed over that and supported by nasal packing.